So what I did to start with to making this concept map was I looked through each of our 5 weeks of our literary circle discussions, and I pulled out the important headliners from each of the 5 weeks. So I had standardized testing, importance of critical thinking, contextualized curriculum, the importance of hands-on learning or alternate ways of learning, constructive hope, role of the school, creating a safe environment, equity in the classroom and school, and the role of the teacher, understanding the curriculum, importance of movement, connection to earth, exclusive teaching, implementing new ways of teaching, interpretation of the curriculum, understanding of curriculum, and transmitting knowledge. And then what I did in different colors was I grouped together the ones that were alike. And so I put ones that were similar in blue, some that were similar in red, some that were similar in purple. And then from there, I made my concept map. So what I called it was my role in the curriculum. So the first main point was understanding the curriculum. Then I thought standardized testing would be my next main point, followed by the role of the teacher and the role of the school, alternate ways of learning, and lastly, number 6, importance of critical thinking. So to start with the understanding the curriculum, I thought of transmitting knowledge, lack of knowledge of content, contextual. So curriculum is messy. It's not easy to describe, but it's what the students retain and take home with them. That's real life curriculum that matters. Interpreting the curriculum to use it to our advantage is very challenging. We need to collaborate in order to successfully do this. Teachers are trying to teach things that they don't understand. They are doing it with their best intentions. So this is why I put the important part is understanding the curriculum, is that you need to understand before you can teach with these guidelines. It's hard for teachers to teach things that they personally don't believe in or understand. We also talked about how Quebec curriculum is very limited when it comes to contextual curriculum. So how can teachers take risks and think outside the box when they are limited by ministry guidelines? This is why I say you need to have a great understanding of the curriculum in order to take risks and to know you're doing it properly. As a teacher in the first couple years of my career, it's quite difficult for me to want to take chances because I want to be respectful and earn my place at the school. I also am still learning all of the guidelines, and I am still learning what the ministry guidelines are exactly and making sure I respect them while making up units. So it's hard to be creative and think outside the box in your first couple of years. What are the positive impacts of teaching with a given context? Is it authentic teaching and learning? Teaching becomes more meaningful when it's contextualized and students develop critical thinking skills and learn real life skills and knowledge. Students will retain more knowledge if I'm passionate when I teach and think outside the box. It is easy to stand up there and lecture students, but what will they actually take in it? The goal for me is to have students retain and take something from my class. I think the importance is being creative and thinking of ways that students can retain the knowledge I teach them. Not every student learns by memorization and lectures. Sometimes they need to experience the material hands-on. So my next main point was standardized testing. Not transferable skills and teaching to the test. When we teach to the test, we're not able to see the things that we teach happen in the real world. And I think that's where, as I was saying in the first one, you're just teaching the students to memorize and not exactly to retain the knowledge. So it's important that you can see that children are able to learn outside of just lectures. My next point is the role of the school. Lack of resource materials and non-mandatory trainings. Separation of house and school. How does color blindness show up in schools and policies? and lack of time to prepare. So for the role of the school, how can teachers feel properly prepared to incorporate LGBTQ education practices that support inclusion from the classroom? This was based on one of our readings. So why do many teachers not do this? How can an educator properly address parents who may be opposed to the idea of inclusive classrooms and who'd rather stick to traditional classroom learning? What if a parent thinks it's inappropriate to discuss gender identity, sexual orientations with students? What can we do? And what is our role as a teacher to discuss this, and the role of the school to discuss this with the parents? We also talked about in our readings, what is the role of the school? Why aren't materials readily available and training? Why isn't the training mandatory? How come as a first-year teacher, I may not be aware of all these great PD trainings we do have? Resources aren't always made available. Trainings aren't mandatory. Should more resources be made available to teachers to help ensure these issues? And do teachers even have the time for all this? We put teachers on this pedestal and expect them to do everything. And is it the role of the school to allocate time for them to go to these trainings so that they can be the best version of themselves? Schools also, I put, how does colorblindness show up in schools and policies? Well, schools that ignore issues of homophobia tend to unconsciously promote heteronormativity. How can teachers go against the perceived norm and make changes within their own classroom? I think it's important to discuss how teachers can start off on a smaller scale, which is their own classroom, before looking at a larger scale. Sometimes teachers, we get thrown off from thinking, how can I change policies? How can I get rid of color blindness? Start in your classroom, start small, because sometimes you try to think on a larger scale and you get scared off from taking a risk. So, which brings me to my next point, which is the role of the teacher. We have addressing parents' concerns, creating a safe environment, equity in the classroom, aware of different cultures, histories, and challenges, scared to take risks and step out of line, inclusive teaching, implementing new ways. So the role of the teacher is, too many teachers are scared to lose their jobs that they don't dare venture out. You don't want to step on any toes or step on the line. And this is where I brought up the colorblindness show up in schools and policies. How can teachers actively feel like they can be a part of the change? How do we promote equity in the classroom? And what changes can be made so that everyone feels safe at recess and at lunch? Based on one of the readings, identifying your skin is too dark as a put down. Enacting whiteness as hidden curriculum through a bullying prevention program. We need to be aware of different cultures and their history and challenges. People will interpret things differently. And this is where colorblindness shows up, is people would rather not deal with these issues and act like they aren't issues and sweep them under the rug. And this is the problem, which is why I suggest starting off at a smaller scale. There was also one of the readings, which was a tweet, and there was an anger in the tweet response of, how dare you teach this in this class? The challenge that we have in the classroom, the battle for the right of what is taught in the classroom, those who get punished for going out on a limb or were scared to speak out, many prefer to keep quiet because they don't want to step on toes. The separation between the house and the school. So this goes back to the role of the school. What is my role as a teacher, and what is the role of the house? And what is the role of the school? We're toying the line between wanting to speak up and making a change, but we don't want to get in trouble with the parents. In the terms of the LGBTQ reading, is that we're asking a lot of parents too, and some experienced teachers to do years of unlearning and become open, and that might take a while, and we might get refused. And so I think it's just understanding that these are obstacles that we will hit. And it's hard to do years of unlearning for certain kids who grew up with conservative parents and backgrounds. We're also asking them to unlearn what they've been taught for many years, and that can be quite challenging. So yes, we do want to move forward, but how can we do it in a respectful way? I think it's important to note that the role of the teacher is to create a safe classroom environment. The job of a teacher is to create a safe environment where students can feel comfortable to share things. And when they do feel comfortable, they'll open up. So my next point is alternate ways of learning. In one of the readings, there's hands-on learning. There's importance of movement, connection to earth, reluctance to outdoor learning, urban space issues, time preparation, constructive hope, sustainable education, honorable harvest. So in one of the readings, Corona mentions learning is embedded memory, history, and stories. And this leads us to the conclusion of the importance of storytelling. How can teachers teach the current curriculum ministry guidelines in a way that will help students retain information long-term and not just for short-term preparation? And this goes right to the understanding the curriculum. How can we teach in a way where they'll retain things? That's my goal as a teacher. I want them to leave and take something from my class long-term. It's challenging to step out of the classroom context, which is already provided and comfortable. It's challenging to implement new teaching and learning practices. Robin Kimmerer talks about the passenger pigeon and the extinction of it. So what is the importance of storytelling? Well, this is a way where students can learn. That's not traditional. That's not just lecturing. We also talked about the reading by Donald. When I'm on the move, I find the rhythmic sway puts me in a meditative flow. This quote implies the importance of moving. Children sit for most of their day at school. How can we incorporate more movement to stimulate ideas and creativity? How come the current curriculum places less importance on movement and more time on sitting at a desk all day? And lastly, the importance of critical thinking. Difficult to compare across cultures and learn real life skills. So what is critical thinking? Does the curriculum really want us to do that? I think they do. So it's not just teaching to the test. It's not just standardized testing. We have to see where we can go and take this into the real world. It's difficult to compare across cultures. So human rights can mean many things to everybody, as we talked about in our first week of the readings. So now I'll talk about the connection between all of them. So we have a direct connection between understanding the curriculum and importance of critical thinking. We see this clearly that all of our readings connected, and that's what I loved about the readings, is that you need to, in the curriculum, that's what it is all about, is critical thinking. Then you also see a link between the role of the school and standardized testings. This is the role of the school, but this is also the understanding of the curriculum as well. So it's just great to see them all connecting. Then we have the connection between understanding the curriculum and the role of the teacher. How can educators deconstruct heteronormativity while respecting their curriculum? Are they afraid of the administration, what parents might think, which goes back to the role of the school? As we can see, there's many connections. And then we have the role of the school is connected to the role of the teacher. They're so tightly knit that you can't have the role of the school without the role of the teacher. And that's where I was mentioning before. What is my role? And what is the school's role? And what is the household's role? And so I think they're very closely knit. And then we can see the direct link between the role of the school and colorblindness showing up in policies. And as a teacher, we're scared to take risks and step out of the line. And that connects to the role of the teacher, which then in turn connects to alternate ways of learning. So if I want to be inclusive teaching, then I have to think of alternate ways of learning, which also connects to the role of the teacher, but it connects to the role of the school. So it's just great to see that they all connect. And I also put the role of the school is we're also scared to take risks and step out of line. So it's all connected. And you see standardized testing is connected to the role of the teacher as well.